For anyone who might not know her, I'd like to introduce our speaker this morning. It's our privilege to have Manda Clarke sharing with us today about her recent trip to Guatemala with the Ministry of for Love of Mateo. And I'm going to have Manda come to the mic now and tell you a little bit about herself and give us the message.
Good morning. All right. Well, I'm going to lead in. I kind of had it all led in after reading the scripture. So if you open your pew or your Bible in your pew, I won't. We don't have to read that word for word, but I'm going to kind of give you the highlights that I took away from that because it's going to go well into my trip. So, and then we'll get into the nitty-gritty and the fun pictures and stuff. So, the scripture through Mark really talks about Jesus speaking to a rich young man. So the young man wanted to be certain he would get eternal life, so he asked what he could do. Jesus lovingly broke through the young man's pride with a challenge that brought out his true motives. Go, sell everything you have and give it to the poor. This challenge exposed the barrier, his love for money. Money represented his pride of accomplishment and self-effort. So then I have a question for you. What does your money mean to you? This doesn't necessarily mean that we need to sell all of our possessions, but many of the possessions that we have could serve others. So this story shows us that we must not let anything we have or desire keep us from following Jesus. We must remove all barriers to serve him fully. So if Jesus asked, could you give up your car, your house, maybe your level of income, maybe a title or a position at work, your reaction may show your attitude toward money. Maybe it's your servant or it's actually your master. And so actually Jesus explained in the world to come, the values of the world will be reversed. So those who seek status and importance here will have none in heaven. Those who are humble here will be great in heaven. The corrupt condition of our society encourages confusion in values. We are bombarded by messages that tell us how to be important and how to feel good. And Jesus' teaching about service to others seems alien. But those who have humbly served others are most qualified to be great in heaven. So I don't know if you guys have ever done the love language test before, or if you're thinking, what is that? I highly encourage you to check it out. But one of my top ones is actually acts of service. So it's actually been, on my heart for quite some time to do something like this, but I kind of ignored it, mostly financial. I thought there's no way that, how would this all come together? Plus, I actually thought, well, I'd love for Jalen to go with me. Being the only girl of the 4 kids, I thought that would be fun for her. I'll wait till she's a little bit older. So Wyatt let pass for like 4 years. I thought, well, that'll be good. We'll go do that. And finally, you just have to make it happen. So that's exactly what we did. And, obviously I always say God doesn't equip the called, or he doesn't call the equipped, he's going to equip the called. So it's amazing how once you put it out there, the community came together, whether it be financial donations through the church, the community, donation supplies, which you're going to see a lot of how that was impacted over in Guatemala. Then you might be thinking, well, why Guatemala? Like, how did that happen? So I actually have a really good friend that I've met through my international health and wellness business. And because of her financial impact, we always say if we have more, we can do more, you can serve more, you can be more to other people. And so that's what she actually did. When she adopted she was adopting a son from Guatemala, and it was a 3.5-year process, because when she got over there to get him, or to bring him home, they actually closed all adoptions. So she was over there and she couldn't bring him back. So that ended up being a 3.5 to 4-year process. And so through doing that, she thought, well, if I'm here, and each time she went, she was paying attention to what was needed, what she could do to serve, and that's exactly what happened. So she actually started a 501(c) nonprofit organization called For the Love of Mateo, whose sole mission is to support the children and families in Guatemala, and she likes to call her mission trips missions of love. And this foundation was actually started in 2010 after that long adoption process. But there's many outreach projects that come through this. And depending on the mission trip leader's choice, they get to pick which which communities, what projects that we do. So we really didn't know up until probably about 3 to 4 months ahead of time what we wanted to bring over and what we were going to be doing. And each time they go, this started with like once a year, and now literally I think somebody's going every 6 weeks. There's a group going, so anywhere from 10 to 12 groups per year. So obviously these projects are coming on board. So I'm going to start. This is our group. This is an amazing view looking over Antigua in Guatemala, and excuse me. So right away every year they always take the groups up to this cross, which overlooks, and it's amazing. You can go stand. How many are afraid of heights? You probably wouldn't want to go too close to the edge, but it wasn't a straight downfall, but wouldn't be fun. So this is one of my favorite pictures. I love that part of it, especially there's a volcano in the back. It's inactive, but just having the volcano there too was a great symbol. So, okay, Ray and I are going to communicate a lot through this. A little quicker. So this is our day one. We actually left on Jalen's 11th birthday on March 18th. It was strictly travels. I always say some added curveballs for entertainment. You're probably thinking, well, why the computer and the suitcase? I'm going to get to that. That was our entertainment for the day. So we actually flew from Alliance to Denver. I highly recommend if you haven't taken that flight. It's awesome, if you can get on there. But then we had a several-hour delay in Denver. Flights had been rescheduled, and it was one of those things where you're like, okay, why are we doing this again, right? You probably had those instances where remind me of what's going to be taking place. So the suitcase, Boutique Air can only take so much luggage. Well, this is my heaviest donation suitcase that had all the craft activities for the kids, a bunch of nutrition, protein, baby care products for the kids at the orphanage, you name it, probably close to $1,000 worth of donations. And when they took it, somebody in Chadron took my suitcase off the plane. So when I get to Denver, I don't have my suitcase, one of my suitcases. And if you know, nothing flies in and out of Alliance on the weekend but one time, which is like 9:30 at night. So we didn't, they've tried making a way that they could actually get it to Guatemala City. But once we left Guatemala City the next morning, we had no way of getting back. And so I just said, get it back to Alliance so we have it. Let's just leave it there. And luckily, because of all those trips that people are going on each 6 weeks, the suitcase then was going back with a friend. So that was totally fine. But not initially, right? Because my whole thought was, this is why I'm going. I'm taking this stuff to these people. It was material items. And then the laptop, this was in Jalen's backpack. And we go through security. You know how fun security is. Well, I noticed the backpack was on her back when she walked off, so I thought she got the laptop. Well, she didn't. So when we got to our gate to fly to LA, I was like, why is your backpack so light? Well, there was no laptop, and we had no time to go back to security. So again, no laptop either, which looking back now is no big deal, but when you think how much, if you're like me and I've had this for 6 years, it has all my photos, everything. So just caused a little bit of some anxiety, but again, you just go with it. So we actually flew to LA, we're there for a little bit, and then we actually took the overnight flight from LA to Guatemala City. And we actually were luckily able to, our group right away you knew was going to be very cohesive, because there was a couple there that came in from Arizona, and right away they were like, was there a group that had a layover in LA? So we actually met for a late supper before we got on our plane, and so that was great too. Okay, go ahead, Ray. So this is day 2. We met our group at a hotel in Guatemala City. There was actually a total of 24 of us, 21 females and only 3 males. So they were probably like, oh my goodness, get me through this week, right? But they were great troopers. And everybody ranged in age from 10 years old up to 81 years old. So we actually had, we called her Grandma Jane. She came with us. And then our driver, Guillermo, you'll see him in another picture. He picked us up in our coaster van. We actually just went to Walmart, picked up our snacks, our water, everything that we would need for the whole week, dropped our luggage off at our hotel, which I'll show you. But this one you're probably thinking, so that's a McDonald's on a motorcycle. They deliver McDonald's in Guatemala. So I had to take a picture of that. And then these are actually the first 2 things I saw within the first mile on our Clarion van. So John 3:16 on the back of that van, and then you'll see the graffiti on the wall about Jesus being Lord. So I just added that in there thought that was great. Okay, go ahead, Ray. This is our van, that's Guillermo, our driver. That's our Christy Dreiling, she's our mission leader. Amazing lady, there's Grandma Jane right there, and then all the way back. So variety of personalities, you know how that goes when you get your trip, and all over, from United States, Canada, all over that part of it as well. Okay, Ray. So this is the view coming into Antigua. That's actually a Hotel Aurora, the bottom right in the orange, that was our hotel. And from the outside, you're like, where am I staying? Please let it be a locked community, right? But I'll show you the inside. It was absolutely gorgeous. So, okay, go ahead, Ray. So this was there was actually just, it really was like a small courtyard. I don't know, there maybe was 20 rooms total. But this was in the center with the water fountain and all the flowers. And yeah, it was really, really pretty. And it was a gate community. After like 9 o'clock at night, you had to ring a buzzer to get in. So it was very well protected. I never felt in danger or anything. So, okay, Ray. This is some more, so that's still more of the hotel. And then we actually walked down to their Central Park, which I'm going to talk about our DBO ministry where we fed the homeless. And so you can tell everything is brick streets. This is a family that was selling some of their garden. Everything was family-oriented. You could tell a lot with the women. I'm sure the men were out working in the fields, but then would come back in the evening. They would have a lot of these stands. And one thing I'll point out in Guatemala, it was totally, we're going to go into some rough areas when we do like our bunk bed project and things, but absolutely gorgeous, and they took care of their buildings. Like, it was nothing for us to like walk down the street at 6 in the morning to go get a tea or a coffee. And they were out with their water buckets, like scrubbing their buildings up on tall ladders like every day. So they just took care of what they had. Okay. So this is the Central Park area. They had a beautiful church right there, as well as this was a walkway that actually went around the whole square. This is where we came back to feed the homeless too. You'll see a picture. Okay. This is all of our supplies. So we pulled everything out that people had brought. You'll find it books, toiletry items. We had everything clear in the back corner. Jalen and the kids were actually even filling Ziploc baggies full of dog food. We found a lot of starving animals, which was very sad. But a whole room full of, and that's kind of where I had the epiphany of like, my suitcase really didn't matter in this whole situation. It must be needed later. So, okay. And we actually got lucky. I guess if you call it luck, but we were going through all of our supplies and having our welcome dinner, and we actually heard a bunch of music and things playing. Well, it was awfully close to Easter, and so they were having their big Easter parade that came through right in front of our hotel. Like, we could go out our window, and we saw floats like this, actually with the Virgin Mary, and there's actually women underneath carrying that. There was probably about 50 of them, but you saw, all the way down. It was amazing, yeah. I have a video sometime if anybody ever wants to watch that, but okay. So, day 3, we actually, we started with breakfast, daily devotions, and then drove back to Guatemala City. So the first of our group projects was actually Esperanza Juvenile, and this is a boys' hope, girls' hope. So it's a boarding school where kids get to live and go to school. The school pays for the kids to go to school and sends them on their way through university. So many of these children, they actually do like an analysis, a survey, and people from impoverished areas that wouldn't have the opportunity for education, maybe they're in high-risk families, they actually choose to leave their families so they can have the opportunity for education. Many of them live in Guatemala City, but many don't. They live around the entire country. So For the Love of Mateo brings in donations, school supplies, books. They had a presentation for us. They sang, which was amazing. We had lunch with them, homemade tamales. So, and then we actually completed a project with them, did some origami, and just really connected with them. And that's one thing, that was probably one of my big highlights, is knowing how there's really no, love really doesn't have a barrier, like even though language is a barrier, because many of these kids, we couldn't even speak with them. I know minute Spanish. Many in our group knew a lot, so if you weren't having trouble, but it doesn't even matter, just smiling across the table with them, like they just wanted attention, they really didn't care. So And then I don't think I have any pictures. I'll let you go to the next one. So this is some of them doing our origami projects. Up in the upper right is called, that's their living quarters. So for those who came in from different areas, many will go home at night with their families, but many will actually go back to where they reside. But this is called, so it's living quarters, and they actually have a tia, who is the adult who lives in the home. And even though they had like running water in there, if they knew that at their home they didn't, they actually wouldn't allow them to use it. Because what they were trying to do was equip them with what they have at home and actually take that back to their parents and really make the change even with their home life and helping teach them how to do that. So like sewing and prepping food and doing laundry and things. So, and then the upper left corner, we brought a lot of dolls, and just to see their faces light up from one little doll, you know, that they were just like, just in heaven. So, and the one thing I really noticed too here especially is we don't, like, they always felt like, I mean, even if you gave them something like this, they literally were taking an earring out of their ear to hand it to you, like it was something that they wanted to reciprocate, and you didn't want to be like, no, keep that, because you didn't want to be offensive that way either, but that's how it, and everything they just kept saying is, you know, God will bless you, God will bless you, God will bless you. So that was really heartfelt as well. But, okay, great. So after we loaded up there, this was probably my favorite place that we went to. We visited Extraordinary Guatemalan. So it's a school and a daycare that For the Love of Mateo supports outside of the city dump in Guatemala City. Most of these kids living inside the city jump along with thousands of others that spend their lives recycling. So their parents actually go to the city dumps, go in, do all the recycling, and literally work 8 to 10 hours a day, maybe 12, 14 hours a day, and make about $1 to $2 a day. So what they do is the children and the youth that are in the program are ages 8 to 20. They're in danger of becoming involved with drugs, delinquency due to their living conditions and their poor family life. So we provide donations, and our favorite part was visiting the daycare where some of the siblings actually, so when the kids go to their school program, they don't have anywhere for the little ones to go who are babysitting, so then they come to this daycare. And we provided food, we completed activities with them. The lady in the upper right, her name is Sophia. You can just tell she's extremely just overwhelmed because just all the food we brought in, and she's a grandmotherly type to them, and some of those parents don't come back to pick them up. Many of them, when they're recycling, find the sniffing glue and, alcohol and things like that. And so she literally will just take them home with her and then bring them back in the morning and start the whole process over again. So, and when we asked her, what supplies do you need? What do you need? She's like, I just need food to feed these children. That's all she said. So that's actually part of what Jalen and I decided to do was actually each month, our entire group, she's like, I need $600. And so amongst our group, we actually just did a PayPal account, and so we give them $600 a month from our group that she can go buy the food with. So, and then in the lower part is this group as well, and he was amazing. Same thing, a father figure for those kids who aren't going to have a father. So, okay, go ahead, Ray. And these are more from the backyard school as well, just the kids and loving on them. So, okay. This is outside the city dump. So that's all the trash that's waiting to go inside the city dump, which is on the other side of that wall. This is actually the wall on the city dump. So I took a picture again, thinking all the slum and things that are behind that. And they always draw this pretty graffiti. And this is actually what they call a chicken bus. All of their buses were painted, not just like that, but they all were dressed to the hilt. Like people had, as much as you could. They painted everything really nicely. So, okay. So day 4, many of you, if you donated money, this is a big part of where it went to. This is our bunk bed project. So we traveled to the community called Yelu to deliver bunk beds, and as a team, we actually purchased 10 bunk beds. Each bed had 2 sets of sheets, a blanket, a pillowcase. We actually gave them an entire tote full of then like shampoo, conditioner, all toiletry items galore. So this was a rural village where families all slept together. If they were lucky. I was appalled to find most of the time if there was one little bed and most of them, if they were so blessed. The government had come in and taken over a lot of their homes, and so luckily, if they did, they had concrete, but many of them it was dirt. And you'll see pictures in the next slide where you can even see it in the lower right. But there's no sewer system, so a lot of that's coming down the street is urine, feces, just trash, a lot of that. So many of these kids were just sleeping on the floor, or again, many of them were slept together in one bed. So we actually built the beds. We made the beds for them. We gave them each the personal bag. Just grinned ear to ear, tears of joy. You could tell they had been waiting a long time. So every time a group comes, there's 10 families that get selected. And I think we go back one, Ray. I just want to see if we'll come back to it. But you can see that's actually a nice part that we saw was the lower left. Yeah, so this is the families right here on the bottom. Those are the ones that were waiting when we got there. Those are the 10 families that were waiting for their bed. So, okay, you can go ahead. We had to climb up. The truck would take the mattresses and the sheets and stuff, but we would walk into all these areas and actually, and then the small child, it was nothing for them to be carrying huge vases of water, that they would actually go get their water and come back to the areas and walk, what we would consider several blocks, if not miles, to bring back the water. So, okay. These are just some of, I wanted to throw in a couple, the no shoes, and that's actually a small dog in the bottom right that you can see there, and then the little girl up top. So sweet, but just, having the nasal drainage on her nose, and that was just their way. But just thinking that that's how they live, but they just seeing the joy in them of just something so simple. So, okay. And that's you can tell Jalen's like, you're smashing me against the wall. Plus we had to do a lot of pounding because we didn't have any tools, just the hammer. And so we were building that bunk bed, and then that was the first group that we actually finished their bunk bed. So, okay. And that's we actually split in 2 groups. Each group did 5 beds, so this was our group that we had completed it with. And this was one of the nicer areas, so it actually had electricity. You can see the concrete, the cement, but okay. And then after that, we actually went to this backyard school. And so they had signs for us, and the God bless you, and we went there and did a lot of activities. There's actually a scholarship program. One of the groups, when she was visiting, her brother actually died in a car accident when she was in Guatemala, so she couldn't even get back for the service or anything, and his next dream goal was to come back with her to a trip. So she actually set up a scholarship memorial fund for him that goes to these children, and it actually provides, it pays for 225 children to be able to attend school. So, and then also in this, the moms a lot of times come with them, and I'll let you go to the next slide. But this is actually the line to get into the school. They knew we were there, so they were wanting to get in and do activities and eat with us. And we actually donated 2 sewing machines to this place, so again, the moms could learn to sew and make their clothes, and just really empowering them to go make the change in their own lives. Okay. This is the room full from those that we were helping. It was jam-packed. This was one of the most crowded areas. Okay. This is the top of their building. They're looking to expand, so this is under construction. So I did that because they're doing a lot of fundraising for that. Okay, go ahead, Ray. So this was our first night of the DBO Ministries. This is where we went and fed the homeless. Many of you donated sweatshirts, blankets. This is what this went to. I'll let you go forward. So we just loaded this on our backs and we were all together, but okay, I'll let you go ahead. So this is a couple of the pictures. We actually had a huge barrel. I don't even know how big it was. We made coffee, would pour them coffee. And the sad thing is, you guys, they actually, many of the kids wouldn't even, the parents would use the kids to come up to us when you knew they had what they needed. But what the parents were doing is trying to get things to actually go take it back to the family so they could turn around and sell it and make money for it. So they weren't in need, what we would think need. They actually were just using their kids as pawns, if you will, to then. And then, so then we were like, what happens to those kids if they come back with nothing, right? So that was hard, but okay. So this is day 5. It was actually our free day. This is Lake Adelan. It's voted one of the most beautiful lakes in the world. We actually ended up on one of these boats and went to the different islands. It's just gorgeous, and it's surrounded by volcanoes. But okay, just some more pictures to kind of show you some of the scenery and what we partook in this day. Okay. The little car that any of them would drive in or walk. A lot of hiking because it is all in mountains and valleys, so a lot of art. Okay. They made their own clay, and then actually we watched them paint quite a bit, just some more of the greenery, and it was really gorgeous despite, a lot of the hardship and things we saw. Okay. This was it was a huge church. And I'm not a history buff, so if you're a history buff, I think you would enjoy this story. I don't even want to begin to explain it because I would just completely slaughter it, but eventually their priest was assassinated, and they would not let him take his body. So literally, they have an entire memorial inside with his body behind it. It was very spiritual in nature. I just didn't take the time to actually read that too much. So, okay. This is part of our going to dinner. Okay. This was outside. I thought that was cool. I just took a little picture of that. Okay. And then day 6 and 7, probably Jalen's favorite part, the orphanage. So this is the Hogar de Maria. Okay. And just different activities. We did crafts. We fed them. We ate with them. I loved, this is Jason from our group. He did a lot of physical activity with the kids. They had a big court. They could play basketball and teaching them how to do some push-ups and things like that. So, okay. Just more time on the trampoline with the babies, and many of you that donated money, it actually went to, we did a day with a bouncy house with the kids. They thought that was wonderful, until the one side collapsed in. It was a little scary, but so good. Okay, just some more. I just love this little kid's smile, just giving him a thing of bubbles, and he thought it was the best thing in the world. So, and then this is the actual nursery in the orphanage. There was about 18 cribs, and most of the cribs had 2 babies in one crib. So we helped a lot with feeding and doing that, but okay. And this is Anna. She lives in Lincoln. Her and her mom came, and they were our roommates, and so Jalen and her really became great buddies. So those are just some pictures of them. Okay. This is our group. We did one big group hug after our farewell dinner that Friday night, but it was great. Okay. And then at the end, we just left a tip, and also muchas gracias for letting me share with you. But a couple of things just after completing the trip. Just truly believe that everyone should experience a mission trip. Maybe it's truly, a wake-up call. Helps you be more grateful, more present, selfless in our own lives. I also thought, as I was completing the trip, it really was to serve and help other people. Teach Jalen about gratitude, third world issues, but in reality, the gift was actually given to me. So, giving affection and unconditional love to children who just need so much, but act as if they have everything. To me, that's love. And then also, I always think, I'm like, okay, back to the laptop. Like, I know I didn't take the laptop. God didn't let me take the laptop because it allowed for that silence, right? So then you're like, oh, I'm over here. I should be doing this, and I have some downtime. When in reality, I had no laptop to plug into. And then no, half my donations. That part didn't matter. They're only material things. There's plenty of it to go around. I sent it with the next group. It's totally fine. And it's not really what we have to give. It's what we receive in return. And that's what gives us our full heart. And so my heart and soul had been begging me, to act for some time, and many people may be, experiencing the same thing, but just that tug in your heart to do something more. So everything big starts with a dream. Sometimes the dream seems so far away or too big for one person to start. And although it just takes one person to have the willingness to follow their tug, and then it's amazing how it all comes together. And I always say it's not in our timing, it's actually in God's timing. And just having that ripple effect, I think of Valerie, who decided to start a nonprofit to serve those in Guatemala, just one small little orphanage to help build their home and, give them a car to drive, and how it's now impacting thousands of lives, and those lives that she won't even be able to meet. It's not only the lives in Guatemala, it's the people like myself who are going to actually serve in that environment. And then also too, again, just going back to what we can give. So many of us have our own God-sized dreams and aspire to be more, and we know there's people depending on us to be that more, to be that extra. Maybe it's food, maybe it's clothes, maybe it's just love or a hug. And so, I always mention, like, God doesn't call the equipped, he actually equips the called. So, it made me realize that, some of us, we have been called, sometimes we just ignore it, right? And so, like, even for myself, like, starting locally with a support group for, women or even families who have lost children, but then extending it nationally and hopefully eventually even internationally around the world, because I could be the next Valerie Edwards, you could be the next Valerie Edwards, but just on a whole different element. And life is truly about humanity, relationships, and loving others. And just, again, I can mention it truly was unconditional love despite the language barrier. That was the biggest thing I noticed. It really didn't matter what you said, it's how you made them feel. And so just to close, and this kind of goes, it was kind of cool, and Pastor Jay was talking about it last week about, he had a plan to go somewhere and God stopped that one and he had to go a different direction. And so one of the books I've read this year is called On Fire by John O'Leary, and he just says how we have one life to live, one opportunity to impact, and one legacy to author, and just living that radically inspired life, which means embracing the lessons from our past, actively engaging in the miracle of each moment, and igniting the limitless possibility of tomorrow. And each one of us has inflection points in our life, that's what he calls them, just that pinpointed moment in time that changes everything that follows. So just like that, where something put in his way, and it's that inflection point of what are you going to do from here. And so in an instant, the trajectories of life, business, and relationships are altered, and that truly, this trip was definitely an inflection point for me. So I think if we all just take that moment of silence and find the inflection points in our life, we realize we're on a journey, not a destination. And I think, as John O'Leary would always say too, like, what more can I do? At the end of each day, like, I did that, that's great, but now what more can I do? So I think that's it. So I think I closed them all up. Okay, thank you.